Hello and welcome to Santos on Sports. As usual, it is Chris Santos. It is Paul Santos. Welcome in. What a busy week we have to cover this week in sports. And there's a lot of ranting going on. How are you, first of all, Mr. Chris?
I'm actually doing well, Paul. I'm a little chilly this morning. I was on the golf course early, a little cold, a little raw, a little windy, but we survived. And now we're ready for Santos on Sports. And we're ready to talk a little bit about the New England Patriots with a little bit of breaking news in the last couple of days. So let's get it back to you and see where you want to start.
Well, I want to start with an opening rant having to do with this gentleman right here, Mr. Kraft.
Yep.
Mr. Kraft made some comments the other day like, I'm not that happy right now. We haven't won a playoff game in 3 years, which I know my partner here, Chris, always likes to say we are so spoiled with the Patriots, but we haven't won a playoff game in 3 years. Yeah, try going 20 years without winning a playoff game. We haven't won a playoff game in 3 years. Our drafting has been terrible over the last 4 years. It almost sounded like he was calling out Belichick, saying, you haven't been that good the last 3 years, right? 3-4 years. So I'm looking at the Patriots schedule, and some pundits are saying, the Patriots could win anywhere from 6, 7, 8, 9 games. So someone said, let's suppose, and I know we're just speculating, suppose the Patriots come out this year and they go 6-11, right? They just have like another reset. Certainly possible looking at their schedule. So what happens at that point? Let's say they have a 6-11 season. Is the job of this man in jeopardy now? Because they've had a couple of bad years, 2-3 bad years in a row? I got to tell you, I don't think so. No. Who are you gonna replace him with? No. I would say, I would give Bill almost the next 3 years before I would even, consider anything like that. So what about you? I mean, suppose the Patriots go 6-11. What do you think that would mean? I mean, do you think that people would be calling for Bill's head even after 20 years of success?
Successful, Paul. It's easy to turn the other cheek when things start to go bad. I think Bob and Bill have a good reputation together. I think it would take a lot more than that to get rid of Bill. Now, age is a factor, obviously. He starts to get to that point. Do I really want to keep doing this year after year? Do I want to go out on my terms? And do I have somebody to replace me right after? So there's a lot to consider. I think they would have to go on a real bad streak this year and the next year to really start to think of that. Even when they've lost, they made the playoffs last year. They've made some changes, new quarterback, some new coaches, some new free agency, a lot of different things going on for them. So I don't think this would be the year if they didn't have a great year that Bob says, okay, Bill, I don't see this working anymore. I think it would take a lot more than that. Specifically myself, I think he's got a lot of faith in him to turn it around. He's got some pieces of the puzzle that he's trying to work in with the free agency from last year, maybe some new guys this year, and then obviously the draft coming up. So it's easy to speculate when you're losing or, as I say, not used to what you've been doing. So let's see how it ends up this year for them to really make that decision. But I don't see it happening at all, even if they don't have a great year.
So how bad would it have to be before you, the fan, would say, let's move on from Bill? 774-301-9432. Give us a call and let us know how bad would it have to be before you would give Belichick the boot. Now, the criticism about the coaches, the criticism about some of these, free agent moves. We do have some breaking news here, and the Patriots signing yet another free agent.
Yes, just maybe about an hour ago, wide receiver Devontae Parker and a 5th-round pick coming to New England for New England's 3rd-round pick. So Devontae Parker, a wide receiver with the Miami Dolphins. Interesting that you trade within your division. That's already some things I've been hearing from some people saying, why are we doing that, number one? Number two, can he be any help to this team? Well, let's look at Kendrick Bourne. Let's look at Aguilar. Think about the receivers that they already have, Jacoby Myers. When Devontae Parker is healthy, he can be somebody that can stretch the field. Now, can he stay healthy for a season and help New England? I think he can compared to what they have. That's yet obviously to be determined. So that's something that we'll see how it develops. But they went and got a position that they think they need help in. So they went inside the division and picked up Devontae Parker. Now, guys are going to look and say, well, he's only had 4 touchdowns or, so many yards, 670 yards or whatever it is, and has been injured. Yes, that's true. Maybe a new scenery will help him out. Sometimes guys like that. Maybe playing for a new coach. Maybe that will help. New quarterback, likes to throw a little bit more. Who really knows? But can it be a step up, Paul, compared to what they have right now? That's to be determined. I think he can help them. Now, I'm not saying he's going to tear it up, but I think he can help them compared to what they have in the lineup right now.
All right, well, shout out to Don Silva. Thank you for looking in this morning or this afternoon, actually. Philip McDonald, too. Give us a shout at 774-301-9432 and let us know what you think. Boy, the fans are, all over Bill, looking at some of the people that he signed and stuff like that. Like they didn't go after the, the big names like Adams or, Robinson or somebody like that. They're going after these like these second tier players, thinking that, maybe you get them on the upswing, that whole thing about you get the player just a little bit before he's going to be better rather than a little bit after he already was better. And that whole in Bill we trust thing. What about that? Like you look at, Parker and now Peppers, they added, somebody said you might as well have Salt and Peppers playing back there, right? You got, you brought back Butler, who's no spring chicken. You brought back a lot of older players like McCourty and, people that he says are class people, but you still have to have people out there to execute. And it does seem like he's getting a lot of these B-, C+ rehab projects. So what do you think about that? I mean, again, in Bill we trust.
Well, in Peppers he picked up, I'm sure he talked to Joe Judge and said, Joe, tell me about this guy. He was a Giant. You were the Giants coach. Tell me what's going on with Peppers. Okay, he had an ACL injury. He's kind of like a box safety where he can cover tight ends. He can help out in slot. Not great coverage kind of guy, big, thick guy. Definitely going to help out maybe in special teams and be a punt returner. So that's something because they got, Gunner had left for the Patriots. So he's kind of a little bit of that athletic roundabout kind of player. Maybe use him as a blitzing safety coming off the edge to help out now and then, kind of athletic. So it's about rebounding from the ACL injury. That's number one. Then number two, it's how he can help out, obviously, in the safety position, maybe cover some big tight ends, some slot guys, and help out move around the field and get him involved. So that kind of depth, athletic kind of player, I think that's what they're expecting out of Jabril Peppers. And talking with Joe Judge, I'm assuming they got the feel for him and they said maybe he could help us in some way defensively. So they picked him up.
I got a comment here from David Pellin. He just types in no. I'm not sure what that was a response to. Like, no, we're sinking. No. It sounds like a negative no.
Now, whether it's Belichick, whether it's Parker's going to help, whether it's Pepper's going to help, we're not sure. So just the word no, that means that maybe the Patriots have nothing.
Yeah, well, maybe it could be the answer to the question that's up there. Would Bill ever get fired by Bob? Maybe he's saying no to that.
Yep, maybe no to that.
Al Coster is saying, let's talk about America's team, the Cowboys. He knows that Chris Santos is a big Cowboys guy.
Oh, yeah, Al knows. And speaking about a big Cowboy fan, so is Al Costa. And right now, Al, let's hold off until we get going. We need to worry about our own team, figuring out where we go now. Offensive line is a little weak. We need to rebuild a little bit now. Obviously, in the secondary would be nice too. So let's see how the draft we have, and then maybe we can come back to the Cowboys and get ready for the start of the season, and we can start talking about them again.
Well, somebody's got to give Tom Brady a run for it over there. I'm looking at the NFC, right? The NFC is loading up with all these quarterbacks and all these players and wide receivers and everything else. And then I look over at the NFC. There's Tom Brady, right? Okay, I don't want to come across like the disgruntled Patriots fan, the disgruntled ex-boyfriend and girlfriend and all that. But talk about the weakest, crappiest cupcake division in all of football is where the Tampa Bay Bucks are. And so Green Bay will give them a shot, but they'll choke in the end. So really, it's up to our Cowboys, I think, to give Tom a run for it over there. Maybe the Rams too, of course. But really, all of the better teams in terms of how many of them seem to be in the AFC.
Well, they've gotten a little bit stronger, obviously, the AFC, with the additions of the quarterbacks that have come over. They've started to take over. Obviously, Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Dak helping out along the way. That keeps the NFC kind of hanging around. Stafford, obviously, with the Rams. But the majority has leaned now the opposite way and gone toward the AFC. You talk about the AFC East, Paul, and that used to be kind of low with Buffalo, with Miami, with the Jets. And now we're seeing that turn and shift the other way, seeing that get a little bit, more consistent, a lot more parity maybe now in that division. And so now it turns on some other divisions to get a little bit weaker too. So that happens. Times change, teams change, and it's nice to see other teams making moves in the offseason to make themselves better and not just sit around and say, hey, we're bottom dwellers and we're going to stay here. So it's good to see some other teams moving up.
All right, give us a shout, 774-301-9432. David Pellin says correct. He was answering the question about not firing Bill. No, we are not firing Bill. And Al Costa said, I already bought my Tums. So I guess he's getting an upset stomach already talking about this stuff.
Yep.
I want to ask you, because people are going through the schedule. It's a little bit early to be doing that, but it does kind of intrigue me over here. How many of these teams, obviously, you got to play Buffalo twice and you got to play Miami twice. Well, they were 0-4 against them last year.
Correct.
You got to play the Jets twice. All right. So if things go the way they should, that's 2-4. Yep. How about teams like, I'll run off a few of them here, Cleveland, right? That's a game that you might win that, but you might not. Green Bay, that's a tough game. Minnesota, probably go either way. I don't know. Baltimore's no easy one. They got to play Cincinnati this year. They got Detroit and Chicago, relatively easy. The Jets. But how about Pittsburgh? That wouldn't go either way. Arizona, they're going to be tough. Las Vegas, Indianapolis, that they lost to last year. I mean, there's a group of games in there, maybe 5 or 6, that could go either way. That's really going to make or break the Patriots season in terms of making a run for the playoff.
Yeah, so the NFC North, the AFC West, a couple of 2 divisions that they're going to have to play this year. And we know about the AFC West with Denver, Kansas City, the Chargers, and obviously Vegas. So a tough division there with the additions of the quarterbacks that have come on there and some pickups that have been along the way. So, that's going to be difficult too, depending on when you're home and away and, you try to figure it out. So, they're going to have their work cut out for them this year. And Bill's going to really have to coach real well. And as you said, you can look at it from a 6 wins all the way up to 11 wins, 12 wins, and can slide either way, depending on how the season goes and how you're adapting to your situation, what you've done in the draft, how you've looked in the preseason, how you look going into the regular season, and so forth and so on. So it's not going to be easy for them. And it depends on, how Mac Jones develops in year 2. Remember, Tom Curran even said that Brady had a little setback in year 2. How is Mac going to be in that year? And along with some of these guys in their second year from free agency last year, how they develop and hopefully get better. And some of these new pickups like a Parker and a Peppers and obviously what you draft. And so, it's going to be a tough road for them, anywhere between 6 and 11, as we talked about.
All right, a couple of comments here. Jay Mello says injuries always play a huge part. A few key injuries either way, and losses and wins are interchangeable.
Yep.
And Charlie Perry from the Charlie Perry podcast, the Really Charlie podcast, thank you for looking in. He says that Kraft will not fire Belichick. So I think we're all in agreement on that one. Okay, good afternoon. You're on Santos on Sports.
Is it me, Paul?
Yes.
Okay, I put in there, I just think Bill's spread too thin, his age, whole 9 yards. Thank you for everything you've accomplished. If he truly was doing what's right for the team, be a coach, let them bring it in a true GM that he can work with. He's just burnt out. Plus what they don't have. Unless they pick up 2 or 3 superstars between now and preseason, on the over and under, and Vegas is 8.5, I'm putting it on the under. I'm literally going to go to Tiverton and put a couple $100 on the under for the season.
Wow.
So do you think? So let's put some scenarios at you. If the Patriots do have an off season they don't make the playoffs, and let's say they only have 5 or 6 wins, does Bob turn to Bill and say, hey, Bill, we're going to go in another direction? Or does he sit back and say, hey, I trust you. I know what you've done for 20 years. We're going to stick with this, and we're going to make it work the following year?
I think Mr. Kraft is frustrated. He kind of presented that the other day, but he kind of put it like, we're hoping the guys from last year, the special team, all those different free agents and stuff we picked up, but it was ultimately a frustration. He put out a lot of money last year without much results. I really think the best thing is just like Bill, be our coach. Be the coach. Let us do what we got to do. Otherwise, I just don't see it. I really don't.
It almost feels like they spent too much money last year in a year that the free agents weren't quite as good, and maybe they should have held back a little bit. I know they wanted to answer the whole Brady Super Bowl thing, but some of the free agents that are out there this year are better, right?
A little bit, Paul. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Well, let's remember, fellas, it's not like you only won 2 games. You still made the playoffs last year. Let's remember this now. You made the playoffs with a rookie quarterback and guys who just came into your organization for 1 year. Let's see what happens in this second year.
I didn't think they were going to do as good as they did, but I thought they should have done better. Yeah, and then to trade away some serious offensive pieces like the line, different guys, the J.C. Jackson stuff, just not good calls. I just think that Bill's just, back to my point, spread too thin.
What about Bill coaching these guys up?
Yeah, money talks and people walk.
You just nailed my point. Be a coach. Leave the GM, leave the office part of it alone. Work with whoever's going to come in and be a coach.
All right. How many wins do you think the Patriots are going to get this year?
6, maybe 7.
Ooh. Ouch.
He's taking the under in Vegas.
Yeah, he's driving over. He's driving to Rhode Island. He's putting his money where his mouth is, right?
Yes.
Hey, thank you very much.
Massachusetts, I can't do it.
Yeah, no, you want to be legal over here. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, right. Well, it's not here yet, so.
Hey, thank you very much for the call. We really appreciate it.
Have a good weekend, guys.
Call again. Thanks. Thank you. All right, that was a good one right there. A little pessimistic Patriots fan over there. But I know my friend Chris Santos, who's not a Patriots fan, he always comes back to it because it is true. You know, for the last 20 years, we got so used to being in the mix every single year that, you know, dropping off and then coming back and just being in the playoff and getting blown out in the first round. We're not really used. There are teams out there that haven't made the playoffs for 20 years, much less,
Paul, you're talking about a rookie quarterback. How many rookie quarterbacks come into the league and go right to the playoffs and get you 10, 11 wins, whatever it was last year, and now you're in there and you got a group of free agent that you just picked up and you're trying to get them into your system for 1 year. For 1 year. That's all they've done. That to me, that's pretty impressive. I mean, I think they did okay. Now, year 2, they obviously want to improve that. They want to continue to get better. That's good coaching. If I can get better in my second year with my team that I've just joined and made the playoffs. It's not like they went 2-16. They didn't make the playoffs and they got destroyed. So, I look at it from a point of view that I'm still competitive, and it's not like we're the bottom of the barrel in the AFC, which they're not. So if this year comes up and they really regress and they go down to like 5 or 6 wins, then you can have an issue. But I don't think that's that bad, especially when you've made the playoffs. But when you're used to winning, people want that every year, and it's not easy to do.
Well, I'm looking at the schedule. I think it's pretty pessimistic to say that the Patriots are only going to win 6 games because there's probably like 4 or 5 on there where you got some pretty weak teams. Now again, these teams can improve too. The Jets, they knocked off some teams last year. They're going to be better than they were. Some of these teams are going to play right, but still, like usually, the Patriots aren't going to win less than 4 or 5 games. Okay. Then you get the Green Bays and the Buffaloes. Hey, those are tough to win, but could you upset them one day? You never know. You could upset Buffalo. Miami, could you win one of those? Could you split with Miami? I don't see why you couldn't split with Miami. Okay. Now you get this Pittsburgh and Cleveland and Baltimore, right? I could see the Patriots beating some of these teams. I mean, if I were those teams, I wouldn't go in playing the Patriots like, oh, this is this is going to be a piece of cake. I'm going against the Patriots. I'm going against Bill Belichick. Maybe we have more talent, but that's a team that I'm going to be afraid of. So I could see the Patriots winning those cluster of games in the middle and still coming out with 10 wins.
Oh yeah, you don't want to go into New England and think you just have a cakewalk. Tennessee went in there, and New England crushed them last year. Cleveland went in there, New England crushed them last year. Dallas barely survived in overtime to win that one. So it's not going to be easy games. There's no doubt about it. And at the same time, the Pats have to figure out how to win on the road as well. And they did last year against the Chargers. Was a pretty big win. They had a close one with Indianapolis. They ended up losing that one. So they did have some close games. And that's why you play the game. But if you think you're going to go into New England and walk right through them, that's not going to happen.
Well, even that Buffalo game that they played in Foxborough, right? I mean, they beat them earlier in the year with that whole, freezing cold and snow and everything. But that second game in Foxborough, not the playoff game, that second one,
yep.
Patriots are right in that game halfway through the fourth quarter.
Yep.
A couple of big plays and a big interception there by Jackson who dropped the ball. Patriots might have won that game.
Yeah, that's true. And now you got your second year under your belt. Maybe you will learn how to win some of those games that you didn't end up winning last year. So maybe Matt can help you out on that. Maybe, Smith can help you out to that. Hunter Henry can help you out on that. And maybe some of the new guys can, get an edge on you and help you along the way as too. So, yeah, I mean, they got some weaknesses that they need to work on and get better at. But hopefully, they figure out in year two, some of the new guys, to figure out how to win those important games down the stretch when you need it in the fourth quarter compared to last year.
Shout out to Chops Turner, who was the sidekick of the century on my other show, the Paul Santos Live Show. He's a big 49ers guy, and he's saying, hey, you know what? They need a new coach. The Patriots need a new coach. I'm like, what are you talking about? They need a new coach, and by the way, they need a new system, and they need new players, and maybe a whole new team. And then he finishes up with 49ers all the way. How's a ruthless? Hey, the 49ers last year, right? Not quite ready for prime time there,
I just think that's a 49er fan trying to stick it to a Patriot fan.
I think that is.
I think that's what Chops is thinking there. So, he wants them to just blow everything up and then really go down. But, right now, this is when you get your money to earn coaching. And, you try to continue to make yourself better. They were a playoff team last year. And let's see what they do in their second year under Mac Jones.
All right, let's see. We have Al Costa talking about how the AFC West is stacked. We've talked about that before. 4 teams that could, vie for the playoffs, maybe even make the playoffs. Mark Sylvia from the Windy City. Bill has always made questionable personnel moves and could overcome with Brady at the helm. But no Brady now, and his bad moves stand out more. He can coach, no question, but he is an awful GM. That's what that other person who commented before. Eddie Kamara says Bill Belichick is the best coach in the division. Look at past coaches we've had, and I would still stick with Bill. And Mark Silva says 2 games against the Bills with no punts. They haven't improved on defense. And Eddie Kamara says that last caller, the one that called before, he's a negative Nelly all the way. So a lot of stuff to unpack there.
Well, yeah, there is. And, you can look at it from a lot of different ways. You obviously you have some Bill supporters. You have some people who think Kraft just is the GM. Just worry about that. Bill, you just worry about coaching. And obviously you want to try to get your team better and get ready for this year. So the AFC West, yes, has increased in quarterbacks, has increased in personnel. But I'm not throwing the Patriots out of the loop. That's for sure. I still think they'll be right in the thick of things as usual. And I'm not ready to put them down and say, hey, no, they're not making the playoffs at all. It's kind of early to tell. They started to make some progress. They went with Parker. I hear OBJ's name being mentioned, that he actually talked to the Patriots. Could be another guy might be coming in. So, there's some interesting things still left. And then, of course, you have the draft. But remember, this is a business, Paul. You can't keep everybody, with the offensive line leaving like Shaq, Mason, and some of these other guys. Some you try to keep, some you just can't keep. It turns into a business. You have a cap. You can only do so much. and then you try to work from there. So sometimes it's just not as easy as you think it is when the money's not in front of you to really realize what it's like behind the scenes. And that's what those guys try to do well, and it's very difficult. So it doesn't matter what team you are, you have to survive and do the best. Now, Mark Sylvia is correct. There are times that Bill can make errors, and Tom could bail him out and save him. Obviously, we know there's no other Tom Brady's out there. All right, that's just the way that it is. So you go with what you have next, which is Mac Jones under 1 year. Made the playoffs in the first year. Let's see what happens in year 2. Hopefully he gets better. Not saying he's going to bail out Bill like Tom did, because not many are going to do that. But obviously, maybe he's learned something from last year, and he can only get better.
Well, Mark Sylvia correctly points out 2 games against the Bills with no punts.
Yep.
And the defense really hasn't improved. And you remember, as they were coming
Yep.
down the home stretch, I was
Yep.
a big critic of the defense.
Absolutely.
And, they say you're not putting up enough points, with the quarterback and some of the busts like Smith had a bad year and all that. But how many games did Tom Brady win? 13-3. The last time they're in the Super Bowl, they won the game 13-3. Greatest quarterback of all time. I think it was either 13 or 17 points. I don't want to misstate it, but there's a lot of times where even the GOAT only put up 14 points, and the Patriots still won anyway on defense.
No, that's true. And, obviously scenarios against different teams, and they find a way to figure out how to slow down Tom Brady. You're probably never going to stop him, but you try to find a way to slow him down, and you make others beat you. And if not, then it's the defense that can help you out along the way, and it kind of works together. I understand what Mark is saying. It was a year where, as the defense went on, usually Bills teams get better defensively as the season goes on. Last year seemed like the team kind of peaked and then kind of declined a little bit, whether it was injuries, whether they were tired, whatever it was. They ended up getting beat pretty bad in those games, as you alluded to. So it's not what they usually do, but it happens. It's one of those years, and we'll see what it comes up this year in free agency, as well as if Bill says, hey, guys, this is what we have to do to get better, and that's why you coach.
All right, we're going to switch over to the Celtics and the Bruins, but Al Costa said that Dak went 13-3 his rookie season. Is that right?
I believe that is correct. Yes.
Wow, that's I forgot that. That's pretty good. But yeah, no. So I guess it can be done, but it is rare. It is rare. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I had the pleasure of going to see the Miami Heat game the other night, and I was watching this man do his pregame warm up, and he's stretching, he's going back and forth, and everything else. But in the end, the Celtics came up short in that game. They didn't win last night against the Pacers, but the Pacers are the Pacers. But that Miami Heat game, I got to tell you, the glaring loss of Time Lord, I just don't feel good about that loss. That is a huge, huge loss. Daniel Tice played pretty well. Even Horford had a good game, but it's just not the same team without Williams the way he's been playing in there. And that, to me, is really going to kill him in the playoffs.
Robert Williams. Very simple, very easy. This is a guy who's leading the league, okay, in defense, where he shuts his opposition down better than anybody else in the league shutting their opposition down. So that's number one. He blocks shots or he alters your shots, and that's what makes it difficult to score against him. Now, he's averaging 10, 11 points on offense, but he's averaging about 10 rebounds per game. So not only are you losing out on that, but I think you're losing out on the other team's big man really dominating in the paint offensively, where he was dominant to alter your shot or block your shot and make it difficult for their big man to score. That's where they're going to miss him the most. There's no doubt about it, especially down in the paint where he's so huge. So I think you're correct. It's now Horford and Tice's job to kind of help out down there. And if not, they got someone coming off the bench, maybe can help out too. But hopefully they can finish the season, survive the first round, and maybe get him back for the second round.
One of the things I got to tell you, being at the game, and when you get used to watching the games on television, and the cameras are going to focus on what they're going to focus on, but I really made an effort to just kind of watch individual players, which you can do. You can do that in a hockey game. You can do that any game you go to. And I'm watching, kind of keeping an eye on number 0 over there. There's no doubt that this man is loaded with talent. I mean, he's on a floor. He can do anything. He can pass the ball. He can drive. He can shoot. He's basically, you're looking out at the floor and you're like, this guy is poetry in motion. He is a talented, pretty much the best player out there in my view. Now, having said that, most talented, most athletic, that's one thing. But he still tends to make those decisions, in the Heat game. The Celtics were actually up by 5 or 6 points with about 5 minutes left. And then, they fell behind. And then Tatum, who we generally say, well, he never seems to come through when you really need it. We need him to drive to the basket more. Well, he takes the ball and he goes into the lane. There must have been like 3 people there. There was so much traffic that the defensive player was backpedaling. And just because he's moving, if you're backpedaling, you know this, right? You can be backpedaling and you can't, if you're backpedaling at 5 miles an hour and the offensive player is going at 8 miles an hour, you can't just run him over. So people were yelling, it's a terrible call and all that. Well, I don't know. I was trying to be fair. I don't think it was a terrible call. And by the way, when he was doing that, Marcus Smart was standing over here by himself. Hey, go back and look at it. And Jaylen Brown is standing over here by himself. That would have been a perfect time to kick it out. But no, he just decided, I'm going to go right to the basket. I'll just run everybody over. I'll probably get the call. And of course, he was chirping at the referee all night. He was chirping at him, like off camera. He'd be running down, and then he got a call with a technical early in the game. So then there was a couple of times where he would slam dunk the ball and he'd be hanging there on the basket, which is always exciting. And then after he was done, he'd give one of these to the referee as he's going down, and I'm like, oh, gee, don't do that, So when it came time to make that one of these, sorry, it's going the other way. Oh, I think the referee went into a hop, skip, and a jump. He was like, zing. He just couldn't wait. He just couldn't wait to make that call, And I'm thinking, there you go. So, big picture, big picture. So I still want to see him make that big play in the clutch, either make that big shot or make that big decision that wins you the game. And I still haven't seen it. And that's what worries me about him.
Yeah, well, first, all the great ones want every call to go their way. That's normal. Everybody wants that. Okay, so arguing the ref, that's going to happen all the time. I don't care who you are. You look at, I'm the best player on the team, so I'm expecting to get some of these calls, favor me because I'm that kind of guy. Number 2, yeah, I can agree. Decision making, even when you're the best athlete or the best player on the court, sometimes you take it to a point yourself to say, hey, I want to take this game and carry my team on my back, and I'm going to find a way to get this ball in. And I watched the game, Paul, that you were there against Miami, and I even watched last night. It's amazing that the 3-point shot has changed the complexity of this game. There are times the Celtics look completely dominant, and the other team comes down and sticks a 3. And they did it. And I watched Indiana last night do it 4 consecutive times where people right in their face and stick 3 after 3 after 3. And every time the Celtics are up by 10, looking to extend it in double digits, nope, all the way down to 3 points. It's incredible how the 3-point shot has changed the complexion of that game. And even in the Heat game, it was the same thing. So, you get to 6, you want to get to 8, 10. Next thing you know, 2 threes, bang, you're only up by 1. Now the pressure's back on. But, boy, they played some good defense at times, and guys still making shots with people right in your face for 3-pointers. So, you got to make better decisions. You got to make better choices, and that comes with patience. Even when the great ones have to do it, you have to find a way to win it down the stretch.
Well, Phil McDonald is the caller that called before, and he's commenting that I've never been called a negative Nelly before. I've been called some other things, but I've never been called a negative Nelly. And Mike Mono, who's a big Chops Turner fan, says, hey, Chops, you guys got to get a quarterback over there in San Francisco. Yeah, so before you start mouthing off, let's get a quarterback. But anyway, how about this guy right here? This guy right here, I was watching him. I thought he had a pretty good game the other night. But him too, he got thrown out of the game, got a technical foul, tends to get a little, fired up a little bit. And, but his defensive ability though, his ability to play defense, I was really keeping an eye on him too. You got to tip your cap to him. He can play defense.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's in the running for defensive player of the year, and a lot of guys have to work real hard. And he plays a lot off the ball as well, where he can double team, where he can sneak up on you and steal the ball, and just play great defense. And how many obviously offensive fouls does he have other teams commit because his feet are so fast? He gets in front of you, lays back. Sometimes he tries it a little bit too much. But yeah, he's a special talent on defense. There's no doubt about it. And it's great to see. He adds a lot of energy on that defense. And both Tatum, Brown, and even Udoka, the coach, will tell you we've been winning games defense, defense, defense. That's the reason we've gotten back to Celtic basketball and back up from 11th to 7th to 4th up to almost first place, right up where there is. And it's all started with their defense, and he's a special part of it.
And that's the reason why I was really getting confident about the Celtics when Williams was in there before he hurt his knee and the old meniscus problem. Because when you have Rob Williams protecting the rim and you have Marcus Smart doing his thing on defense, and even White's a very good defensive player. Now you can kind of like, Brown and Tatum, they're going to play defense too, but now that frees them up offensively. And it really makes the Celtics dangerous when you have all of those parts. But now you take Williams away, again, that's a big part of the defense. Protecting the rim is one thing. What Marcus Smart does is something else. And when you put those two things together, that's a formula for winning in the playoffs.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why they've gone from where they were deep down all the way back up top to compete with Philly, compete with Milwaukee, compete with Miami, do their best, and hopefully win games down the stretch. And then wherever they are from there, first round, try to do the best they can. And let's see how Williams heals, a young kid. Hopefully they have him back for the second round as long as the Celtics win that first one, get him back. And, obviously you now have somebody in the paint, and that makes Smart even drop down a little bit more, Paul, when you got someone dominant in the paint like that to alter or block shots. Now Smart can sneak up on you and creep in and do some steals on those big guys, and they don't see it coming. So he helps out along the way as well, and then moves all around and gets that defense pumped up, which leads to obviously transition basketball and easy buckets for Brown, Tatum, and the rest, and then create turnovers and take big leads.
Give us a shout if you're commenting over here. We'd love to hear from you at 774-301-9432. Believe me, we love the comments. Please keep typing in the
Absolutely.
comments. But if you want to jump in and talk to us too, that's always a lot of fun. Al Costa's making another comment here. He's saying, I love the Celtics, but I can't stomach the 3-point competition every game. Picking up on Chris's comment. They can be up by 20, and they just keep throwing them up there. Shake my head. Well, I remember too, anytime you give a statistic, I mean, they love to give these sportscasters and people on television commenting and so forth. They love to give you these statistics, but if you don't put them in context, it gives you the wrong feel. For example, they said something about how Tatum had more threes by the age of 24 than, Larry Bird had at the age of 34 or something like that. Okay, that's fine. I'm not taking anything away from Tatum. But if you don't then say, well, by the way, the game has changed to the point, and there are games where Larry Bird only took 3 threes the whole game, So if you don't say that, complete the sentence, give all the facts, and then credit Tatum for what he's done so far. But if you don't say that, you just leave it out there like, wow, this guy must be better than Larry Bird. Well, no, you have to take into account that the game has changed.
Oh, absolutely. The game has changed. And Al's correct. And I watched it, even last night against the Pacers, and they were up by like 12. And the Pacers hit 4 consecutive 3-point shots. And I'm not talking wide open threes. I'm talking guys in their face, still putting it over and still going in and cutting it down from 12 all the way down to 3, just like that with like in a minute and a half. So it is a different style of game. It changes the complexity, but that's the way it goes. And when you're being taught, everybody's learning, even the big men, shoot the 3, shoot the ball. And they're being taught that. So that's the style of the game. There's nothing you can do about it.
I hate to bring luck into it because, hey, anytime you in an athletic competition and you got 2 really good teams, there will be random chance will go your way. But I have to tell you, the night that I was at the Heat game, one thing I noticed is, boy, they got some bounces. The Celtics would battle for a rebound, throw it up, even like a layup, but in traffic, and the ball would kind of hang on the rim and roll out. And then at the other end, the guy take a shot and go bing, bang, boom, bang, boom, and go through it. I'm like, geez, can we get a break over here? But that, hey, that happens in favor of you. That happens against you. But that particular night, boy, the ball was rattling around and they just couldn't seem to get a break. And the other team, everything was falling.
Yeah, that's kind of 50-50 because,
Yeah.
you're going to have those games when it goes against you, and you're going to have them games where it works in your favor. So, that's just the way that it is. Talent sometimes rises to the top. Good teams, Miami right up there, some good players. Hero can make some shots. Obviously, Butler does his thing. And the ball was dropping for them. And every time you think the Celtics can take a commanding lead, it keeps them hanging around. Then you have a bad possession here or there. And the next thing you know, they come down, stick a couple of threes, and now they're up by 3 or 4. So it can change very quickly with that three-pointer. But that's the NBA today. So you got to live and die by it.
Yeah, I thought Jimmy Butler was terrific in that game too. He's a great player, and out of Bayou and Tyler Hero, he was just hitting everything. He comes off the bench and he's hitting everything, and so they're Miami. You don't really hear too much about Miami. When people are talking about teams that could go somewhere, you hear about Philadelphia and the Nets and this and that, and the West you hear about Phoenix and that. Miami, I'm looking at that team. They're dangerous. They got a lot of ingredients there.
Yeah, they do. I think they're tough. I think Milwaukee's another one with
Right.
Giannis, Middleton, a couple of those players. They're very solid as well. So, those top 4 right now. And obviously, you can never count out Brooklyn, even though they're down 9-8 right now. I wouldn't want to play them in the first round, especially with Durant. Still think he's probably one of the top players in the NBA easily. And that would be a tough matchup in round 1.
Yeah, imagine that. Imagine fighting all year to move up in the standings, and you end up being like the top 1 or 2 seed, and you're feeling good about yourself. And then in the first round, you got Durant standing there. Yeah. Oh, that would just be what a terrible miscarriage of justice,
No, you have to play who's in front of you, obviously.
I know.
It's a matchup that you just don't want in the first round. And Brooklyn had that era there when it was a point that Durant was out. Obviously, Irving was out. A couple other guys injured. And the next thing you know, they went from 1st to 3rd to 8th to 10th. Now they're back up battling there 7th and 8th. So, yeah, that would be a tough first-round matchup for anybody. I don't just mean the Celtics. I mean, even the other teams would say, oh, boy, we got to play Durant. That guy could carry a series just by himself.
Well, Don Silva made a comment to Chops Turner. Don't worry, San Francisco will be fine when Brady gets there. No. Say it isn't so. I think he wants to go to Miami. That's a whole other story. But I don't know. I think Brady's, after this year with Tampa, I don't think he's done yet. I think he wants to go to Miami. And if he gets to Miami, he's going to bring some people with him. And now you got Miami and Buffalo. Imagine Brady's having to see him twice a year in your own division. Oh, my God. That would be, for Patriots fans, that would just be a nightmare, wouldn't it?
Well, I'd like to save this topic for another show.
Yeah, we could do a whole show on it.
Well, we could. And my big thing is how convenient now Bruce Arians is not the coach.
Oh, yeah.
Tampa Bay right now. How convenient as Tom has come back when him and Bruce really didn't see eye to eye. And you think Tom had something to do with that? Yeah, I do. But that's another topic for another show. We won't get into that one. So I'll just leave it at that. But, yeah, let's hope he just stays right there because I don't think he's going to Miami. That's for sure. But I think he'll just stay in Tampa right now and have some friends with him and ride out the storm there.
Tom's turning into a diva, He
sure
he's like turning into LeBron. He's turning into LeBron, for God's sake. He wants to stack his team and all this stuff,
Yep.
Oh, I understand that. Well, I did get a chance to go to a Bruins game the other day. Now, right here, I was really down close for the Celtics game.
Yes,
that was pretty cool. Not so much for the Bruins game.
A little higher.
I got a good view of the Bobby Orr. Retired number. But no, the hockey, I actually enjoy being up high too. And so I got a couple of shots there, but you see a good friend, Jeremy Swayman, who, one of our callers was a big Swayman guy.
Yep.
And hey, he's playing great. The Bruins did have a dud against the Maple Leafs, but I wouldn't hit the panic button there. I still think they're doing pretty well. They made a couple of additions on defense. And I don't know, they get that line split up, the perfection line split up with the second line, Pasta on that second line, and the third line playing better. And now you got that kid who just came in the other day, got a goal that was nice, of course, against a weak team. But hey, I don't know. Hey, the Bruins, like we said, have as good a chance as anybody else.
Yeah, and after the loss to the Maple Leafs, which Cassidy did not like that loss because obviously you're playing a pretty good team there, and they got beat pretty bad. And he sat there and said, I'm going to make some changes. And the third line, he kind of shifted up, as you said, brought the young kids in. Now, I know they played New Jersey, handled them pretty well. The kid from Ottawa finally got in the game, coming back now. And after picking him up, got into a fight, got some toughness along the defense. Lindholm starting to gel with some people and get going there. So, as you said, yeah, it could have been a dud game, even though you always want to beat a team like the Toronto to see what you kind of have. But let's see how these last 2 weeks or so filter out. Now that you have everything you want, everybody's in, everybody's healthy, Bergeron back, Brown's in there, Lindholm in there. You get your pairings the way you want it on defense. You get your 1, 2, and 3 lines all set to go. Let's see how it looks down the stretch. I think that's what Cassidy's thinking right now.
All right, let's go back to the phones. Hello, you are on Santos on Sports.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Very good, very good. I know that you probably didn't want to discuss Tom Brady and the coach resigning. Some people say getting fired, but that's why I waited to the end of the podcast here, so maybe you can ponder this opinion, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
So my opinion is, I'm not sure, what people's backgrounds are, but in most big companies, most successful companies, they have a process called, checking out, when you retire or leave the company, they have some type of outgoing interview, exit interview, and they ask questions, and it's normally held by someone high up in the organization, in this case in the NFL, I think the owner of Tampa Bay. So Tom Brady, in my opinion, something more like this probably happened than Tom taking it upon himself and becoming a diva and saying, hey, it's me, I am, he's got to go. So I'm thinking probably, if you have the best quarterback or one of the greatest football players of all times, I guess arguably, but, he is one of the greatest of all times, and he's leaving your organization. If you're the owner and you don't sit down with him for a one-on-one and say, what would you do different if you were in my shoes or as an owner or with all your experience, what do you think? Which direction? You're probably not a very good owner. So, maybe the conversation started like that. Hey, Tom, what would you do if you were in my shoes, or how could we get better, or what would some of the changes you would make, and, possibly he did say, hey, your head coach, maybe, I'm used to a lot more structure and discipline, not just on myself, but on the rest of the team. I'm used to having someone that's more involved, and, maybe the owner said, why, we don't have that now, and then made some changes. I just wanted to stick up for Tom Brady a little bit. I think he's taking a bash, and I don't think anyone really knows, unless you were in the room, on how the conversation went. It doesn't look good. Did the owner say, well, how about if I, make some changes? Will you come back up to it, including, moving the coach into a different role? And maybe he said, yeah, I'd give that a shot. I just think he's kind of getting a thrash, and I just wanted to stick up for him. You guys can think about that and, maybe talk about that on a later podcast.
All right, well, let's get Chris's response to what you said.
No, and I can agree that should a quarterback have to speak to a GM to talk about a coach? Isn't that what the coach and the GM should say? Hey, how do we make our team better? Or do I need to talk to arguably one of the best players of all time and get him involved in that, as Green Bay has done with Aaron Rodgers? or Deshaun Watson talking with, let's say, Cleveland. So is that how the scenario is going to work? That's true. We're not behind the scenes to really know that, but we know that Bruce and Tom have not had a great, situation with one another in the last couple of years, and you can tell they've ruffled each other's feathers a little bit here and there. So yeah, you're throwing it out there that one could say, well, hey, the GM went up to Tom and said, what do you think we could do a little bit better? That's possible. Or no, not at all. Maybe the GM didn't say nothing, and it just came to the point with, Bruce said, I've had enough of this. I don't like the way this is running. I'd rather move up. So we don't know the backdrop, but there's a lot to look at. But a lot can see it where Tom maybe had some say in the matter and saying, you want me back, you want me staying here. Well, then I kind of want it to be like this. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. We just don't know which one. You are correct. We're just speculation. One guy's got one opinion, one guy's got another, but you got to look at it from both sides. We'll see how it all turns out.
I just don't think. Of course, I don't know either, right? I'm just a fan. I just don't think that. I don't know if he's that kind of cutthroat type of guy. I mean, I'm sure he didn't make it to where he is, not having the ability to be like that when he needed to be. But I just think, I'm not. I just sticking up for him a little bit, trying to give him a little credit as far as his character. Do they ask him? Is that a good process? I don't. I thought where I come from, I got a lot of good information from exit interviews, from talking to employees that were leaving or retiring. They had no, pressure on them to tell the boss what he wanted to hear because, they're all done and they're leaving. So they kind of shared, some things which, hey, if I was in your seat, I'd do this, or we may do that better. Or, I think it went, I'm hoping, I guess, it went that way instead of, hey, it's me or him or I'm retiring. If you don't get, no, I don't know. I just think a lot of people out there who don't know, are kind of tarnishing the guy. Now, don't get me wrong. I think this does tarnish his image a little bit in the long run. But I'll let you guys think about that, and maybe for a later podcast, you can chew on that.
I got a quick question before you go. What did you think about this gentleman right here complaining about, I'm not happy. We haven't won a playoff game in 3 years. We've had 4 bad drafts in a row. Is he not happy with this guy right here? Bill Belichick?
Yeah, I mean...
It's overblown, right?
Well, it can be, but, that's why Bill Belichick doesn't talk to the press. Because no matter what or how he says it, or whatever he says, and even anyone from the Patriots, he doesn't let any of his players talk either. Because, they just read into it and break down the meaning of it's just so you're better off, just being generic. But there, the owner's kind of like a fan. He's not Bill Belichick. He's not a player, and he has, this is his home. He's from this. I can understand how he would open up a little bit. I'll guarantee you that, Bill Belichick probably wishes that he didn't.
Right. All right. All right. Well, thank you very much for calling as usual, and we look forward to chatting with you again.
Fair enough, fellas.
Thank you very much. And we did get a comment here from Al Coster, and he says, please don't ever mention Tatum and Bird in the same sentence again. Oh, yeah, Tatum could end up, he's only 24, I think, or something like that. So, give him a little chance here. He's not even in his prime yet, right?
Different generation. So, Al's like around my age. We're big Larry Bird fans. We consider him the greatest Celtic of all time that I've seen playing. So we hold him high expectations. So Tatum's, trying to do what he can do at the age of 24 and hopefully just getting better. And as you said, Paul, starting to peak and getting his prime and leading to the Celtics where they want to be, back to the NBA championship. So hopefully he can do that with Jaylen Brown and the rest of his team. And hopefully Williams gets healthy, can get back in there in the playoffs. play some great defense, and work some magic, and never know, can get on a run.
Thank you very much to that last caller for an excellent call, as usual, as the case was with the earlier caller tonight, too. As a matter of fact, Philip McDonald just put another comment. In Williams' absence, Smart went back to his old ways. Too many shots, not speeding the ball around and feeding the ball around as much as usual. What do you think about that? Do you think there's a temptation for, Smart to be doing things differently because Williams isn't there?
Well, maybe he's trying to do too much to pick up the pieces for Williams not being around, and maybe getting out of position to help Tice or Horford or some of them guys down below. Now frees his man up to take an open jumper, or he's late getting back. Then the guy has a step on him, and it makes it tougher. So it's possible. That's just part of the game that you have to figure out during the game when things are not going your way, because you don't have your big man where he's usually there.
All right, we got 5 minutes left. If you want to jump in at 774-301-9432, you continue to put the comments in. We really enjoy that. Ryan Fast and Farias. I love that name for the podcast that he's started. I've had my issues with Smart in the past, but he's been unbelievable this season, especially with his passing. So there's someone sticking up for Marcus Smart.
Agree.
And
he's been solid.
And then he also says, great view of Swayman. I was up in, when I'm up in the balcony, I don't mind being up in the balcony, but I like being at center ice in the balcony. Balcony, center ice, I'm happy, So that's where I was for that. You can really see the plays develop, too, when you're up in the balcony with hockey, even more so than basketball. And then Ryan Fast and Farias also says, to be honest, I was surprised Bowles was elevated instead of Leftwich. I'm hoping for the Bowles from 2015 when he went 10-6 with the Jets.
Yeah, he's correct. That's two guys that you thought would be the ones that would take over. Yeah, okay. So Leftwich and Brady, do they have that, offensive gelness together? They're still probably going to work with each other unless Leftwich goes somewhere else. But he's still part of the big picture. Are really going to be needed for that team to continue to succeed. But it could have went either way. Maybe Bowles with more of the experience, so they gave it to him instead.
All right, Al Costa says, great show today. We appreciate that. Thank you very much. And
thanks, Al.
Of course, the contributions from, the viewers and the people who are commenting and the people who are calling in is really what gets us to another spot. So we really appreciate that. We really appreciate the comments that have been coming in and the phone calls. We got about 3 minutes left. Anything you want to close with? Anything that's kind of off your mind that, on your mind that you want to get off your chest over here while we have a couple of minutes?
Well, obviously there's two big games tonight in the NCAA. So I'm looking forward. One game on at 6, one game on around 9 o'clock. How about UNC and Duke, Paul? Here's two tremendous and great organizations that have never played against each other in the NCAA tournament until tonight. That's pretty special for teams who have gone, obviously, as far as they do every single year. And obviously Coach K's final game could be tonight, or if not in the championship. So wishing those guys well. Kansas and Villanova in the other one, another special two teams. But looking forward, I guess, to seeing those two games because it's four good schools. But very, very interesting that UNC and Duke have never played in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. That's true. And I've heard them talk about that over and over again. Yeah. So people will be looking. And this whole thing with Coach K, 75 years old last year and all that, makes for an interesting story. But let me just throw a little salt in here just for the fun of it, right?
Sure you
Coach K's great. Coach K's great. But I'm watching the thing and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, he's great and everything. But once you build up the program like Duke to the way it is, all the best players go to these 7 or 8 schools. They do. So in other words, hey, you take a great coach around like a Brian Baptiste and you put him on Duke. I mean, you think they'd be there? Somebody that knows what they're doing. I'm not thinking, again, I don't want to come across that way, but the best players always end up, going to those cluster of teams. And I don't care whether it's Bill Belichick or whether it's Terry Francona or whoever it is. The number one thing you have to be a great coach is you got to have the players.
No, that's true. And you got to be a good recruiter, Paul. Remember that. You got to be a good recruiter.
Right.
It doesn't mean that all these talents are going to go just to Duke. and all 25 top 5 players, top star players are saying, I'm taking Duke. You got North Carolina, you got Louisville, Kentucky, you got great schools. It doesn't mean they're going to pick Duke. So you got to be a great recruiter. And he's been there long enough to make that program become elite. And yeah, great players are going to want to go there, but they're also going to want to go to the other schools too. So you got to find a way to recruit them and get them part of your program.
Right, and that's really the big thing, right?
Yes.
Once you establish yourself as the class of the country or one of the class organizations of the country,
Sure.
they'll go there. So therefore, the other side of the coin is it's because of the hard work building the program, making it the class organization that is, that makes the good players want to go there in the first place.
Yeah, that's correct. And you think about where he's getting his players from. Is it just down in the Carolinas? Is he getting them from out west? Where's he getting them from? So you got to kind of look at that role too. And then the kid coming in, okay, yeah, I know it's basketball, but he's supposed to be going there for some kind of schooling, and does it have the education part that he wants? So am I graduating with a degree of the field that I want from Duke? And if they don't have it, well, then can I get it at Kentucky? Could I get it at UCLA? And then I make that. So the recruitment part is really important, how they can present all that to the kid and say, you're going to be the fit here. And
we want to get you a degree, but never mind the degree. Can you hit the 3?
Can you hit the 3?
Anyway, Ryan Fast and Furious, final comment. I'm rooting so hard for Duke, but I'm really nervous about this one because the Tar Heels always play them tough. So it should be a great game. It should be a great game tonight.
Well, UNC went into Duke on the day that Coach K's final home game, and they laid it to Duke. And Coach K, came out afterwards and told his fans, hey, I apologize. This is my fault. We lost this game. We did not play well. And obviously he wants to turn that around and say we are a better team than what we showed in our last home game. So let's see how that works tonight.
Al Costa says, go Duke and Nova. So we'll
and believe me, I know why Al Costa is saying that, because he's in one of those little March Madness pools. And I think he has those 2 teams, Paul, to kind of move him to the top and maybe win the bracket.
I was going to ask Mr. Guarantee, but we might have to do the opposite.
Yeah, he might chime in and say who he likes. That's for sure.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the interaction of the folks that like to chat sports with us. We really appreciate that, both commenting and calling. The calls were terrific. The people making all the comments on New Bedford Guide, Fall River Reporter, Santos on Sports page, Paul Santos Live page all together, New Bedford Live. So we're very happy to have people interacting with us. It makes us more fun for us. It makes a better product, hopefully. And hopefully we'll see you again next week. And thanks for catching up with us here at this different time. We had to work around Chris Santos' schedule out on the links. Like some things have to take precedent here. You know what I'm saying?
Well, first tournament of the year, had to get out there this morning and get
feeling
that
good.
But the other guys, Al Costa, thank you. Butch Ferreira, thank you. Charlie Perry, all the, Mark Sylvia, all them guys that chimed in and those who came in afterwards too. Thank you for your comments. This is why we do it. It's love to have the fans get involved and great when you call in and let us know what you think.
All right. Pass the word to friends to join us. We really appreciate it. We'll be back next Saturday, I believe, at 10 a.m. And again, we appreciate all of the interaction today. So for Santos on Sports, for Chris Santos, I am Paul Santos. We'll catch you next Saturday for Santos on